Alright, this time we will look at purchasing in HandiFox Online, how purchase orders are created and how to receive items, both in the web application and in our mobile app, and also how to get HandiFox to generate purchase orders for you automatically to replenish your stock. So let me make this a bit bigger and also go full screen so you can see better. And let's start that by creating a new purchase order. And for that we go to the purchase transactions page, which lists all purchase orders and inventory receipts that we have in the system. And to enter a new purchase order, we go here and choose purchase order from this menu. So now we can choose the vendor we are buying from, and also the inventory site for which we are buying, which in my case it chose main, which is what I want, so I'm going to leave it unchanged. And now you can either choose items from the list here to add them, or you can enter them by scanning their respective barcodes, and I'm going to do a combination of both just to demonstrate. So for the second item I'm going to use the barcode scanner now. Okay, I think that's enough, and now we can save this purchase order, and there's also an option to print it right away. So now we are viewing this purchase order that we've just created. It's already there, and we can go back and make sure it's displaying on the list now. This is the one. So now if we just want to receive this or any other purchase order, we can either click receive in this action column here, or click on the order itself to view it and then click the receive PO button. And by default it already fills in all the quantities that were on the original purchase order. So these are the quantities we are receiving, and in this column these are the quantities that were on the original purchase order, based on which we are receiving items now. So you could uncheck this receive all checkbox so it makes everything 0, and then you can verify everything you are receiving manually, which I'm going to do, but I'm just going to use the scanner for everything this time for the sake of speed. But of course manual entry is always an option. And I think this is everything. Yes, 3, 3, 4, 4. Okay. And now as soon as I save this, it creates a new item receipt which is linked to the purchase order we created earlier. So now if you go back to the purchase transactions list, we can see that the purchase order we created previously is now showing as fully received. So that was the simplest case when we just wanted to receive items from one specific purchase order. There are a couple other ways to receive items. For example, you may have noticed from the last time that as soon as I choose a vendor in an item receipt, it opens this panel on the right where it lists all open purchase orders that exist for this vendor, if any. And I can mark one or multiple purchase orders here. Let me mark 2 for example, and if I click add, it's going to populate my item receipt with all the items from those 2 purchase orders combined. And now if we receive those items and save the item receipt, well, for one, of course, it's going to add those items to our inventory, but it will also link this item receipt with those 2 purchase orders, and those purchase orders will be considered fully received and closed. And finally, you can also just create item receipt from scratch, not based on any prior purchase order. And you can just enter whatever items you need to receive and save it. And depending on your workflow, you may never need to do it like this, but sometimes it is helpful just to be able to receive arbitrary items at will like this. Okay, and now I guess let's take a brief look at how all those operations can be done on the mobile device as well. Okay, so to make a new purchase order in the mobile app, we go to Inventory and PO Center and tap New. and here we need to choose the vendor, and the site is just going to be whatever site this mobile device is assigned to, which in my case is main. And as always, we can either scan the items in or choose them manually from a list and enter their quantities manually as well. I'm just going to scan some. And you can also combine these two ways and for example, scan an item once and then edit its quantity manually. And when done, we can tap save, and this creates our new purchase order. Here it is. And to receive a purchase order, we go back to this screen, highlight a purchase order, and tap receive. And now we can again either type in the quantities or scan the items in as we receive them. And there's also this checkbox that's called receive all. When you mark it, it's going to populate all the quantities automatically. That is when you don't want to verify every single piece manually. But I'm going to just scan in all the items. Oh, looks like I scanned one too many of these. And it, as you can see, it warns you when you do that. Alright, and when I'm done, I'm gonna tap save. And these items are now added to our inventory, and the purchase order in question is now considered received. Now let's look at the purchase order generation functionality available in the web application of HandiFox Online. So as you can see, there are three options here how to do it. The first option, called sales rate, calculates your average sales volumes per day, and based on that it tries to purchase enough items so you don't run out of stock. So by default it considers the last 7 days, but you can extend this period here. And when we click retrieve, it shows us what items it thinks need to be replenished and by how much. And you can also include future needs here to cover your needs for some amount of days in the future. And as you can see, it's adding to these quantities here. The second option works similarly, except that it considers whole weeks instead of individual days, and it calculates your average weekly sales and extrapolates them into the future to cover your needs for the next n weeks. So by default it's 4, and if I set a greater number of weeks, you will see the quantities change. They are larger now. And finally we get to the third option, which I think is the most useful because it gives you very fine manual control over when everything gets replenished and by how much. So it relies on so-called reorder points and desired quantities on hand that you have set for your items. And let's briefly look at where you can set them. It's under inventory, QOH viewer, and click on desired QOH and reorder points. So let me pull up the items I have been working with and also the site where I have been working. Yes, and as you can see here, I have set some reorder points and desired quantities on hand for my items. So basically these numbers here are the quantities below which HandiFox will want to replenish the items, and these are the quantities to which it will try to replenish them. So for example, you may notice these two items on the top have no problem because they are still above their reorder points, but this item is at 116, which is less than 150. So next time we generate a purchase order using these values, HandiFox will include this item on the purchase order, and it will set the quantity such that it will be brought back up to 200 with the purchase order. So let's see how that works. I'm going to go back to generate purchase order, choose the third option, choose the correct site, and hit retrieve. And as we expected, this item was at 116. HandiFox wants to purchase 84 more, which in total will give us 200. And likewise, the situation is the same with the rest of the items. So now we can mark all the lines that we want to generate the purchase order from. But let's say I don't want to replenish these two just yet, so it's gonna be just these 5. And now we can hit generate, and it's telling us it's created a new purchase order with this number, so we can easily find it. So let's take a look. I believe it's this one. Yep, so these are the 5 items we marked to be included on the purchase order, and everything looks fine. Alright, I hope this was helpful, and stay tuned for more manuals and other videos. Thanks, goodbye.